Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Slagaki, chair of the Maricopa County Democratic Party. This district is personal to me. I grew up here with my family. I went to school here, and I currently live here with my wife, Megan, and our young son. I am a voter in this district. I'll be glad to join you today with our Democratic candidates for Congressional District 6. This is one of the most flippable congressional districts in the entire country, and we know we can win this seat. We have 4 candidates running in our primary election, which is on August 4th this year. I will be doing a mini interview with all 4 candidates, Carl Gentles, Anita Malik, Stephanie Rimmer, and Hiral Tipirneni. We hope you enjoyed learning about all these candidates and the way this election will impact our lives and not just Congressional District 6, but all of Arizona. Thank you. Hey, Carl, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking your time. Can you tell us a little about yourself to our viewers who are watching this?
Well, it's great to be here today, and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Carl Gentles. I'm a Democrat running for the 6th Congressional District. Lived here in Phoenix for 35 years and 20 years right here in the district, so I'm really excited to be here with you. I'm a 2-time graduate of Arizona State University, undergrad and my MBA, and by profession, I'm a public relations and nonprofit exec. I run the Gentles Agency, which is a brand strategy and event production and strategic communications firm with my wife, Carla, and also run a nonprofit called the Back to School Clothing Drive, which helps to break down barriers to early childhood school success throughout the Valley. We have 260 partners, schools, 30 school districts all across the Valley doing great work. And so I've been working in that field and helping kids in need for the last 12, 13 years. So look, a little bit more about me. I'm running for Congress because I believe our government is broken. And we need real reform to ensure that our government is working for us and not against us. And, you know, our grandchildren's futures are at risk. And it's time to turn our anger into action. And I'm running on a platform of reform to make fundamental changes to strengthen our economy, to grow our economic opportunity, to strengthen our healthcare system, and to protect and fix the Affordable Care Act. And really to usher in a new era of criminal justice, police reform, and law enforcement accountability, because I believe that we can balance equality, community, and safety all at the same time. And so, as I said, I'm running on a platform of reform, and I'm running on reform to get things done, especially for my grandchild's generation. So I'm glad to be here and talk to you guys about all of that.
Great, thank you. So tell me the first question, what actions should Congress take to aid small businesses and the workers that have been harmed by this COVID crisis?
Yeah, well, look, uncertainty and unemployment are crushing our economy and our American workers' spirit right now. The depth of our government's distrust is extraordinary. There's economic inequality and health disparities, which have been exposed by this current crisis. And that compels us to act immediately and decisively. And so, as I said, our government institutions are broken and we have to make significant changes. Most importantly, we've got to restore the faith of the American people in our government, that it will be there for them when they need it. And that's just not the case right now. So this requires some real leadership change. In the last several months have exposed the structural weaknesses in our economy. And long before COVID hit, we could start to see the social and economic inequalities that were driven by this current administration's policies. And so we've got to make some change. And so part of that change includes changing the status quo, changing the norms of our economy. And we've got to chart a brand new way forward to do a couple of things. One is that we have to reverse the permanent tax cuts that were given to corporations. Now, by the way, I don't mind the tax cuts given to corporations, but it can't be at the expense of the American people and the individual family. And so if we're going to give permanent tax cuts to corporations, then we need to give permanent tax cuts for people individually and not just make those temporary. So we need to reverse that. So, you know, when you talk about the economy and small business, I have an economic agenda that's on my website, and it really focuses on 5 specific things. Improving the family financial stability and economics of our families, protecting seniors and retirement incomes, strengthening wage and income growth for our economy's frontline and essential workers, And we have to develop a more vibrant small business and entrepreneurial ecosystem. That's really important. And then look, longer term, we have to invest in economic infrastructures that drive job creation and economic revitalization. So some of the primary things fundamentally around small business are these. As we think about a new stimulus package, that stimulus funding needs to be directed where it's needed the most, which is the small business community. And so if we do another package, and I think we should, it should 75% of that money should go to small businesses of, I would say, $1 million or less, because we missed helping a large share of those small businesses in this first round. And so $1 million or less, that money should go to small businesses to prop them up. And then I think another 25% of that should be dedicated to small businesses with $1 million to $5 million. So then you get some economic equality for small businesses and opportunity for small businesses to receive the money that they desperately need. So I think if you're a company that has $5 million or more, I think that's a separate category and a separate chunk of money for those companies. And those companies can't eat up the money that our small businesses need. We need greater transparency and accountability for credit lending to small businesses and underserved communities. And I think we also can make certain small business loans forgivable for keeping people employed for longer periods of time. And then finally, in longer term, for small business opportunities, I think we need to make a greater investment in social enterprise development and small business programs that encourage new business formation to address local market gaps. And so I believe that this COVID-19 issue has given us an opportunity to rethink our economy, rethink our support for small business, and rethink our way forward from here. So it really does open up some innovation and opportunity for us to do some things differently.
Great, thank you. Second question here. What measures do you support to halt the progression of and mitigate the consequences of climate change?
Yeah, that's a great question. We know climate change is a significant threat to this, to our nation and to this world. And there's no doubt the main reason why the temperatures are going up is due to the CO2 emissions. And that's the main driver of our rapid change in our climate. So I'm in favor of any measure that reduces CO2 emissions. Now, here in Arizona, and nationwide, we need to do some specific things, including investing in alternative energy sources and to further the reduction of CO2. And here in Arizona, that means two things primarily. It means solar and wind. Those are two things we have the most abundant of. In fact, we have 300 plus days of beautiful sunshine, and we're not capturing the full power of what that sun can do for us. And so we need to incentivize individuals, individual homeowners and businesses to convert and to go to solar. But here, we have to make it easier. We have to make it more, we have to make sure that people understand the economics of how solar works, and to change from basically the electric grid that we're on now onto a grid that's driven more by solar. And so once I think Arizonans and the American people really understand the economics of it, and we make it easy for them to do so, I think that conversion will start to happen. But that's going to require some incentivization, because people just don't do anything without an incentive, unfortunately. And I think we can incentivize that with some tax credits and some other carrots that makes it more feasible for people to convert to solar. So I think we invest in renewable energy, in solar and wind, and where we can, hydroelectric, where that's feasible. So the second thing we need to do is invest in research and development, and to find new and sustainable ways to store the excess energy that we produce. The challenge right now is that the production of solar and wind energy the challenge is, what do you do with the excess? And the storage of that energy has not caught up with our technology has not caught up with that storage issue. And so we need to invest heavily in more research and development that allows to discover new ways to store the energy. But in the meantime, I think what we can do is, because of all this energy that we can produce here in Arizona, we can take that energy and perhaps sell it to neighboring states like California that needs additional energy. And we are in the process of developing power lines that can take that energy from Arizona to California and vice versa, back this way as well when we need it. So there's really a very strong interplay and relationship between our neighboring states that we need to make sure that we can take advantage of. And so that excess energy and storage is a #1 issue, but the additional excess energy that we have, if we can't store it, let's sell it to our neighboring states to allow them to use that. And then finally, I'd say that we need to lower our CO2 emissions overall, #1, but also to invest in more natural gas options. And that's going to reduce our heavy dependence on oil and coal. And I think we have to reduce our heavy dependence on oil and coal while at the same time not destroying economies and jobs. And that's the secret, that's the magic of making this conversion that everybody's looking to try and solve. And so clearly climate change is a challenge, and we do have very bright minds, a lot of technology that we can use to solve the issue.
Great, thank you for that, Carl. Third question, moving on. How can we make healthcare more affordable and accessible to everyone?
Well, look, first, we've got to make sure that everybody, as many people as possible, are covered with health insurance, with a quality, affordable health insurance, right? Which ultimately in the system will bring everybody's costs down. I support the Affordable Care Act. I have from the very beginning, and I will work to protect, expand, and strengthen its provisions. It's not perfect, but it has brought us a long way. It's brought us a long way, and I think that we are on the right track. And I do not support the dismantling of the Affordable Care Act in any capacity. And so, the long-term goal, as I said, is to figure out how we provide health care for as many people as possible that are still not covered while keeping the costs low for everybody, right? So look, just today, we know, not even today, for the last 6 months, we've seen how important healthcare is to this American economy and to us as individuals. And just today, I was watching Meet the Press, and Chuck Todd reported that the United States is the second highest COVID-19 infection rate per million, and we have the highest healthcare spending in the world. So now you couple that with the administration arguing this week to take away pre-existing conditions and to eliminate the Affordable Care Act is really a powerful indictment on our leadership today. And so that's what we have to fight against. And that's what I'll be working on in Congress to make sure that we protect the Affordable Care Act. I will say this, and healthcare is extraordinarily important. I believe it's a human right, and I also believe that the ACA is a bridge for those when times are hard. And so what I mean by that is we ought to take a look at adding a public option to our health system. And I believe also a couple of other things real quickly, and I'll list a few other things I'd focus on. One is that I think we ought to have our healthcare should be portable, and it should be independent of your employment status, meaning that if you leave a job, you don't lose your healthcare, it goes with you. And if your healthcare is better than the healthcare that you go to your next employer, then you ought to keep the one you have. And so I think that's critically important. And people in this unemployed, this high unemployment time, look, they're losing their healthcare because they don't have a job. So look, it's the ACA, our healthcare system is not perfect right now, but I think we can make it better. Now, at the same time, we absolutely have to protect those with pre-existing conditions. We have to drive down prescription drugs, and we have to just make sure we've got enough plans that makes it affordable and an affordable entry point for everybody.
Great, thank you for that. I appreciate your answer. Final question. What do you believe is the most important issue to CD6, and what bill would you sponsor in DC to address it?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of issues that are important to CD6. Here's what I've heard as I've talked to numerous people around this district. They fundamentally believe that our government is broken, and they are worried about the fundamental things that they've come to depend on that exist in our government structure, like healthcare, like our social security system, Medicare, and really overall their ability to retire comfortably and have actually some money left in their retirement account when it comes time for them to retire, and to be able to afford the high quality of life that we all enjoy here in CD6. And so we've got to have longer term structural changes. That's what I'm hearing. Longer term structural changes to protect our very high quality of life in CD6 here in CD6 and in Arizona. But most of all, here's what people tell me. They want somebody that can work in a collaborative way and get things done for Arizona and Congressional District 6. They want somebody that can cross party lines and work with both sides of the aisle. And they want somebody that can put party politics aside and the needs of the district first. And that's what people want. Somebody who will work in a bipartisan way, put principles over politics, and they just want somebody that can actually get some things done for the state of Arizona.
Thank you. Thank you again for your time. Thank you for joining us. Do you have any final words for us, Carl, to close us out today?
Sure. Well, look, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. I thank you for holding this forum. It's been fantastic. And look, I've been committed to serving my community for 35 years, 20 years right here in my district. And we've made a difference in a number of places, a number of things, like in education, through my work with the Back to School Clothing Drive, where we supported Title I public elementary school kids, 25,000 kids a year, now over 250,000 over the last 11 years, to help them succeed in school. And you know what, we've done that through a number of civic partnerships, including partnerships with organizations like the National Charities League, Boys Team Charities, a number of other civic organizations that we have that have volunteered and support us our work over the last 10 years. And we are looking forward to doing more of that work in Congress. In addition, I think, as I said, people are really looking for somebody that can get things done. And my work through my time at USAA produced over 3,000 jobs and produced a little district called Norterra up here at I-17 in Happy Valley, which I'm very proud to have been a part of the spark that generated all that with the landing of USAA. And we created 3,000 jobs. I think we can do even more of that. And before I got there, we were working to bring corporations, companies, high-paying jobs to the Valley through my work at the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. And it brought over 24 companies to the Valley. And so these are just examples of things that we have done in our community here for the last 35 years. And I believe people should look at an individual's record and what they've actually done and accomplished as a way of seeing what they can do in Congress. And I believe that when the voters of Congressional District 6 take a close look at the things that we've done, I think they're going to like it. And I believe that that will compel them. And I'm asking you to cast your vote for Carl Gentles on August 4th. And when those ballots come in on July 8th to your mailbox, you get that ballot out, you fill out immediately and cast your vote for Carl Gentles. And I look forward to your support and serving you as your next representative for Arizona's 6th Congressional District. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Again, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, take care.
Hey, Anita, thank you for being with us today. We appreciate your time. Please take a few minutes and tell the viewers a little about yourself.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you, MCDP. Thank you, Stephen, for giving us this opportunity to talk about this very important race. And thank you, everyone that's watching. I know this is a challenging time, but these are important races, and I'm so glad you're an engaged voter and tuning in today. So a little bit about me. I have spent the last 25 years as a woman working in tech, in higher education, and have been a small business owner and entrepreneur. And through that time, I have seen the inequities in our system. I have built teams, I have brought people together, and I've also worked in media and was the founder and publisher of an AAPI, an Asian American nationally sold magazine, which was award-winning. And really because of the multicultural aspect that we were able to bring to a publishing industry, which didn't have that before. And I am proud of everything I have done, but none of those are the reasons that I'm really running for this position. I know I can bring a technology side to our government to address cybersecurity. I know I can bring people together, but I'm running because of uncertainty. The uncertainty that we all feel in this time right now. In this painful time when we should have elected leaders who are protecting us from that uncertainty, who are leading with action, with compassion, but instead they're letting us live through this. And what is so sad to me is that this time of uncertainty is nothing new. I am running because we have lived with the uncertainty of healthcare in this country for far too long, where the price of something is a question mark, no matter if you have insurance or you don't have insurance. The uncertainty of safety in our communities because of gun violence. The uncertainty if you are a Black American in this country of whether you'll experience hate or violence or survive through a traffic stop just because of the color of your skin. The uncertainty about climate change and a government that's not taking proactive action. And the list goes on and on. That's why I am in this race. That is what drives me, because we know that we so direly need compassionate, empathetic leadership that also has common sense. And the truth is, Representative David Schweikert has shown us that he's lacking in both of those. And what also drives me is that this is my home. This is where I grew up. This is where I'm raising my children. And for 9 years, I have watched Representative Schweikert avoid us, not stand up for us, vote alongside Trump in the last few years, not hold town halls, not be present for this district and only for his own special interests. And now he's under an ethics investigation for the last 3 years. And it's time for change. We all deserve better. And that's what has driven me to this point. Because after being your nominee in 2018, I am ready to continue the fight. We know what it will take to get this done. And David Schweikert doesn't deserve us as his constituents. He deserves the best fight that we can give him, and I'm ready to give him that fight.
Great, thank you for that. We appreciate your answer.
Yeah.
First question here, what actions should Congress take to aid small businesses and the working class harmed by the current COVID crisis?
So there's so much to talk about with this, which is unfortunate, that we have seen our country not step up quickly, both our state and our federal government, not fast enough and not broad enough. So I'll start with small business. I mean, there's a few things that I think we need to immediately do, which is look at how many of those small businesses didn't get the funding, the PPP funding, the different loan programs that were available, because sole proprietors make up a large amount of small business in this country. So we think about gig workers, and that is a big concern, and we've seen some action for our gig workers, but we haven't seen, think about a wedding photographer. Think about a wedding planner, somebody that is a sole proprietor but has all these different investments and debts and things that they owe to keep their business going. This is a very critical issue with so many of our businesses not receiving any type of support. So one of the things is to increase and expand support for our small businesses, but also for everybody. I am a keen supporter of universal basic income in a time of emergency, so emergency UBI. I have been talking about this from the beginning of this pandemic, because to understand that a one-time check is not going to cut it when we have this long path ahead of us. Recovery, economic recovery does not happen like that, particularly now as we've seen the resurgence of the virus in our communities. And so now our businesses are hit even more, which means our employees, our workers, our people are hit even more. This issue is one that is near and dear to my heart as well, because I'm in this fight a lot, as many of you know, because of healthcare. And what I have seen Congress has lacked doing is really looking at addressing what is happening to all of the unemployed millions and millions of people in this country now who suddenly are looking at how to fix healthcare. And there's so much that they need to be done, including supplementing those ACA payments, making sure there's subsidies for that, but also for COBRA. For somebody that suddenly lost their job, that has doctors, that has a chronic illness, we need to ensure that we are protecting those people. And I know I'm out of time for this question, I think, but I have an entire list, entire infographic of the healthcare emergency needs that we should have done 2 months ago, in fact, in this country, and that I'm hopeful that we still can push through in this time.
Great, thank you for that. So moving to the next topic, what measures do you support to halt the progression of and mitigate the consequences of climate change?
So the number one thing, the first thing, and there are so much to talk about with this as well, but is we need to look at why as a country we are not investing in renewable energies and clean energies. And our government provides a lot of subsidies into fossil fuels. And so the first thing I will fight for is to move all the fossil fuel subsidies and put those into renewable energies. From there, we need to look at what we can do at that more local level. And the federal government needs to invest to ensure that our underserved communities, those that are hit hardest by climate change, our Black and Brown communities, those are the communities that we need to put grants into to make sure that renewable energy is accessible. It can no longer be something where you are, saying that we have to wait till the cost goes down. Yes, we need to improve the technology of renewable energy, but we also need to invest quickly, move quickly. We know what the data shows us, that we don't have time to address this. We have to act now. And one of the other things I would definitely do is put a tax on carbon emissions. That's very important because, again, we have to stop incentivizing what is harming our environment and our climate and our communities, and which is a health issue.
Great, thank you for that. We appreciate it. So next question is, how can we make healthcare more affordable and accessible to everyone?
So this is one of the passionate issues of mine because my family has put our pain really to our purpose in this election. We are one of those many millions of American families that has struggled with medical debt, even though we had insurance. We are living in a country where 66% of bankruptcies are because of medical bills, and that's not okay. So I truly believe we need to move away from employer-based coverage. We need to make it swift. We need to make it bold. But I also am pragmatic, and I know that we live in a very politically divided country. So my commitment on healthcare is to fight every single day when I am in DC as your congresswoman to make progress on healthcare. So if I can't get the bold change I want quickly, which, Medicare and Medicare for All is a path, that path needs to be strengthened. Medicare is not perfect as it is today, but to get to this, it will be strengthened. It'll include dental coverage, it'll include everything it needs. But how do you get there? You start to bring people into it now. You start to let people buy into Medicare immediately, enroll newborns immediately, start to bring together our already single payer systems. Single payer is not a bad word. We already have the VA, we have CHIP, which is the Children's Insurance Program, we have Medicaid. We value these programs and we need to start to bring those efficiencies together to build out a system that would work. And eventually we should see our insurance companies be taken out of that equation. They are a layer in this equation and they should not be the ones determining whether we should get care or not get care. And if we need to say we need to work on this industry, and I know that's a concern to so many people, and I want to address this quickly, of what happens to the insurance industry and the jobs, because the jobs are key. We need to look at this from a standpoint of what America is lacking in, which is wellness and prevention. We are so focused on how do we fix the people that are sick that we never take care of the people from getting sick in the first place. So what I'd like to see as we move toward this bold vision is also let insurance companies compete if they want to stay in the market around wellness and prevention and start to build this dual model for some time as we get to where we need to really go. But we cannot be afraid to say we need bold change on healthcare. If anything has shown us that, it is this time with COVID-19. We have to speak loudly about it. We have to be bold. We have to know that there is a vision. Without it, these things don't come true.
Great, thank you for that. And our final question here, what do you believe is the most important issue to CD-6, and what would be the first bill you would sponsor in DC to address this?
We just spoke about it. I think that one of the most important issues to our district is healthcare, because healthcare affects everyone. It is actually quite critical to the injustices we're seeing in this country as well, the systemic injustices, because if people don't have their health, what do they have? And we all need to own that as what guides us as we go forward, is that health is the most important thing. My father taught me that, and it's something that has stuck with me, and it's why I fight so passionately for this. So it would be healthcare, and one specific piece of it. Now, again, if I can't get to DC and the first thing I do is a bold move on healthcare because we don't have the political will as a country, I'm not going to stop. And I will sponsor a bill to end surprise billing. My family has experienced surprise billing to the tune of over $8,000, and I know families across this country are struggling from it as well. It is not acceptable, and if we do it correctly and there is bipartisan support, we can actually build the foundation for the vision I was talking about earlier. We need to say this is something where the rates simply have to be set, and we need to work together with our providers. They deserve to be paid. This isn't about that, but this is about insurance companies denying bills continuously. So I would end surprise billing.
Great. Thank you again. Thank you again for your time and joining us today. We appreciate it. Do you have any final words to close us out?
Really, this district is so important to me. It is my home. I am so passionate about this race because I believe we deserve a representative that will hear our voice, that will stand up for us and not vote alongside somebody like Donald Trump, that will actually represent us and not hide, and will have town halls. That's why I have signed a town hall pledge to make sure that we have town halls in this district, which we've never really had. We did have one that we put on last year, and it was the first town hall this district has seen in over 6 years. And I bring that up because over 200 people showed up on a Thursday night, and I was reminded it was the first night of football. And they still showed up because of what was so compelling was that they just needed their voice to be heard. I know that is what all of us in this district have wanted for so long, is to be heard, is to have somebody that brings our voices together. We have stories, we each have struggles on all these issues. And it is so important that somebody is hearing us and taking those voices to DC with them. And that means everybody. Our district is diverse and it is beautiful. It is everything from our tribal lands to our unions, to our Muslim community, and everything in between. And that's what I'm here to do. I hope to earn your support again as your nominee. Again, we closed the gap last time, 15 points. We're very proud of what we did. We've created a movement. And to win this in November, it will take an infrastructure that can't happen overnight. It's one we've worked on for 3 years, and it's one that cannot be bought. There is heart in this movement. And I promise you, I will not fail you. And I promise to lead this district with the compassion and empathy and common sense that is so, so missing in this time. So thank you.
Great. Thank you again, Anita, for your time. We appreciate it. Hope you have a good day. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking your time for this interview. Can you tell the viewers a little about yourself?
Of course, and thank you very much, Stephen, for having me and for the county taking on this initiative for us and for our campaigns. For everyone out there who doesn't know me, my name is Stephanie Rimmer. I'm a small business owner and a lifelong Democrat and a 25-year Arizona resident. I would like to represent you in Congress for Arizona's 6th Congressional District. In 2016, I was honored as a Phoenix Chamber Athena Award nominee for public service in recognition of more than 2 decades championing public education, parks, preservation, conservation, sustainability, and for working to promote a high quality of life for everyone. We accomplish a lot in our district, but we do it all without the help of Congress. It shouldn't be that way. As a citizen working on various community issues, I have helped develop public policy in areas critical to health, nutrition, development, water management, and more. I have experience in public finance, taxation, and budgeting, which are critical areas of expertise for our heavily underserved district. We should be getting a lot more from Congress, and it's time that we change that. I would like to make that happen. My background in global business, trade, and finance allow me to tackle issues that are key to a strong Arizona economy. Our state has the ability to double exports to Mexico, and I have the experience to make that happen. Most of our politicians have never run a business, made a payroll, or lived off their own profits. We would be better served with at least one representative that understands how policy impacts small business, jobs, and our local economy. After we elected 100 new people to Congress in 2018, and it seemed that nothing changed or even possibly got worse, I realized I had to make the time to run to Congress to offer our community a public servant rather than just another candidate looking to build a career in politics. Serving in Congress is about representing our community on matters that relate to the federal government. This is an important job that we can no longer trust to just any politician, especially those who refuse to look at things in a different light than their own party politics. The last Democrat to hold this seat, former Congressman Harry Mitchell, has endorsed my candidacy and is the chair of my campaign. Together we can win this seat, but not without your support. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Stephanie. So the first question, what actions should Congress take to aid small businesses and the working class harmed by the COVID crisis?
Well, there's a lot that we should be doing. First and foremost, I would say that we need to put money in the hands of consumers. To stimulate the economy requires spending. We need products to move from one place to the other just to stimulate the entire supply chain. So I promote putting more money into the hands of consumers and expanding it beyond what the restrictions were before, which was $100,000 a year in income. You might make $120,000 a year as a 32-year-old who's been, doing a good job in the marketplace, or even maybe you live in a very high dollar market like San Francisco or New York. You still need those stimulus dollars. So we need to expand who receives stimulus money, and we need to put more money directly in the hands of consumers. That is the way we stimulate the economy. Then we need to change the restrictions on the Payment Protection Program. Initially, the first rollout required 75% of the funds be spent on payroll. That and the rest could go to utilities or rent. And then with the second rollout, you could reduce it to 60% on payroll, but still utilities and rent. And the problem with that is, again, you don't have a product moving. And so we could pay a lot of people to have a job and sit there and not work, but the way to stimulate the economy is for products to move. So we need the money to be able to pay vendors as well. And so if we take a restaurant, for instance, you could pay for your building and pay your utilities, pay all your employees. But if you can't buy your product to cook, you don't have a product. And that's the same for everyone. So you need to be able to pay your vendors. And the vendors are the ones that are being hurt the most. We've already seen 175,000 businesses across the country that have closed either temporarily or permanently. We believe 100,000 of them are probably permanent closures at this point in time. And that number is going to continue to rise as long as businesses are in business, but they can't pay their vendors. So what we did is Congress thought if they threw money into the economy, that was stimulating the economy. But the money has to actually stimulate the supply chain so products start to move from one place to the other. And so reducing that, we also need to have probably a third round, allow companies to reapply because this is going on longer. We need to expand access to credit for companies that did not qualify for the PPP. We also need to look at how this affects trade and the supply chain there. So we have the Export-Import Bank of the US. We would like to see them reduce their restrictions on qualifying for Export-Import Bank financing. And we also need to open up the PPP to business owners with a criminal background, because that is a very underserved part of our community. They get hit on all aspects of, whether it be elections and voting, harder for job placement. And then you get somebody who's grown a business and now they can't qualify for the PPP. So they're further disenfranchised. We'd also like to see money route to the certain community and minority investment banks that exist around the country, because we saw that rural communities and minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses were less likely to get the PPP. So there's a lot of things that I would like to see, and those are on the list. I'd also think we need to make it easy for borrowers to not worry about about the repayment. So while the National Small Business Administration and some of the other organizations out there are calling for $150,000 or less loans to be forgiven, I would go with $100,000. But we need to be putting money in the hands of consumers and help keep the money flowing. There's other things we can do too, though. You saw that we had requests by the president and governors and Congress for landlords to forgive rent for businesses, but nobody asked anyone to forgive, nobody asked the health insurance companies to forgive missed health insurance premiums. So we have more than 600,000 small business owners or employees whose health insurance is in jeopardy. I'd like to see us either expand access to Medicaid immediately to get them access to Medicaid, or we can ask health insurance companies to forgive the missed premiums.
Thank you, Stephanie. We appreciate that. Next question. What measures do you support to halt the progression of and mitigate the consequences of climate change?
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to see changes to procurement. The US government and all of our government agencies down the ladder are combined to be the largest consumers in the world when you put it together, every single government agency in the United States. But procurement is based not upon what is most energy efficient or the best product out there. It is based upon usually low cost. Government keeps outdated products on the shelves. Like we wouldn't sell, I'm in lighting and you know this, but we wouldn't sell incandescent lighting if we could get government to stop buying. A lot of outdated products are still manufactured because of government contracts. So first and foremost, we need to change procurement so that we are tackling climate change through how we spend our taxpayer dollars. That's so first and foremost. The second thing is around the globe and in corporate America, we do things that are very responsible to the climate. We track our SDGs, which are Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 of them that have been defined by the UN Global Compact Network. And corporations all across the globe track and we report to each other. And in some cases, we stop doing work with each other if we're not meeting our goals. And we saw this a couple months ago with Patagonia. This is in London, but Moody's had requested to make a purchase, their CEO, from Patagonia, and Patagonia would not deliver because they hadn't met their goals. So I'd like to see government agencies have to do this. So whether you be a school district, a county, a city, a state, or the federal government, we need to require not only that we spend our money on energy efficient and sustainable products, but also that each government agency tracks and sets goals for meeting certain levels of sustainability. I'd like to see a climate action plan, a national one, to tackle energy, and for every government agency to set goals for net zero by 2050. I think there's a lot that we can do. So those are like, the first ones.
All right, thank you for that. Next question, Stephanie. How can we make healthcare more accessible and affordable to everyone?
That's a tough question. While we are in a climate where over the last 20 years, we've seen 1,700 or more hospital consolidations, a lot of doctor offices consolidations. And what we know, especially from having to deal with, tackling Ma Bell, decades ago, when we get large conglomerates and big corporations and less competition, prices go up. So in the United States, where hospital consolidations have taken place, prices have gone up anywhere from 12 to 25% for healthcare at those hospitals. And the same is true for doctors' offices consolidations. So I would like to see us tackle the competition and also tackle the health insurance marketplace, where we have 76% of all insured across the country are insured by only 4 different insurers. So we have a real competition issue. The marketplace was supposed to open up competition. Without the public option, that never happened. So first and foremost, I think we need a public option. We need to fix the ACA to include a public option for everybody. And then we need to also create a prescription drug plan as part of any fix on the ACA that allows everybody to buy a plan through the public marketplace, even if they don't like the one they get with their own insurance. So we can all buy our prescription drugs with Medicare negotiated prices, and we need to let Medicare take the lead on the pricing for prescription drugs. I'd also like to see us opening up Medicare. So part of my platform is immediately expanding Medicare access for children from 0 to 5, so that every child born in America has access to healthcare from the day they are born. And we can catch developmental delays, any minor or major health issues right away. But we also create a different mindset for the next generation that everybody deserves healthcare and it's there for you from day one.
Great, thank you for that. So a final question here. What do you believe is the most important issue to CD-6 And what will be the first bill you will sponsor in DC to address it?
Well, I think the most important issue to CD6 and to every congressional district across the country is equity. We've continually failed to tackle equity, whether it be in education, healthcare, jobs, housing, transportation, even in technology. We saw this during the all the parents having to teach our kids from home while schools were shut down this spring. And access to technology is becoming even more important and more critical. So we need to not think of it as a benefit. It needs to be a standard. So I would say equity. So the first things that I would like to tackle immediately would be probably campaign finance reform would be high on my list, but all the issues related to equity really are my top of my list. We need to expand civil rights protections. We need to pass the ERA. We need to pass criminal justice reform. We need to tackle the housing crisis. Definitely, there's a lot to be done, and so there's not really, one bill, but probably then the first bill maybe should be congressional reforms, so that we can force Congress to take a different viewpoint on the work that they have to do. But it's a really challenging and tough one to say, because none of us really introduced just one bill first, hopefully. And anyone who goes to Congress with a plan hopefully has several bills they already have in mind. And I certainly don't have one. When it comes to housing, though, I think one of the most critical things that we need to look at is urban and inner city housing and the housing inequity, because that's how we really tackle equity, is once people can become homeowners. So that would be really a high priority of mine as well. And that's something that I also work on in my personal life. And I think we're going to be seeing, there's a lot of us around the country that have started to work on tackling the housing affordability and inequities that exist across our country. And I think we'll be seeing a lot of movements that way, and hopefully we'll be able to create great change.
Great. Thank you again, Stephanie, for your time today. Final thing, do you have any final comments for our viewers here today that are watching?
Well, I would say that my candidacy is really an opportunity for us to not just tackle progressive issues such as, equity or equality, which are things that are very important that I absolutely will always champion and have been my passions all my life, but it's also an opportunity for us to grow jobs. As a small business owner who's been engaged in trade with Mexico for a long time, I know the market, and right now, Arizona, we only control 2.5% of the export market to Mexico. We can easily grow that, double it. 75% of our goods only go to Sonora. That's another area, because we should be, exporting, coast to coast. So it's an opportunity for us to grow jobs, tackle sustainability in an area where, I said I'm in lighting, so I know I sell solar, I sell energy efficient LED lighting. I know the industry, I know the energy market. So it's an opportunity for us to not just tackle my passions, but also to tackle jobs, sustainability, and to really put this congressional office to work for us. But my platforms, well, like I said, Medicare for kids 0 to 5, but I also federally funded pre-K for kids at the age of 3 across our entire country. I believe we really need to focus on how we're going to start education at an earlier age to make sure everybody's really ready to learn. Right now, with No Child Left Behind, we have reading by the age of 3rd grade, and I think that's a little bit late. So I'd like to see us be, bringing everybody up from the bottom, kids on healthcare, kids getting a better education, and that's really how we change the next generation.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. We appreciate your time. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Hi, Hiral. Thank you for being with us today. We greatly appreciate you taking your time. Can you please take a few minutes to introduce yourselves to everyone?
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen, and all of MCDP for hosting this, obviously in extraordinary times. We would much prefer to be with everybody in person, but this is the safe way to do it, and we appreciate everyone's engagement. I am Dr. Hiral Tipirneni, and I'm so proud to be running for Congress in Arizona's 6th Congressional District. And I'd like to just to tell you why I'm running by sharing a brief story with you. I am a former ER physician, and this is the story that really cuts to why I'm running. So think about two women in their early 40s. One woman, a friend of mine, finds a lump in her breast. She immediately goes to see her physician who orders a mammogram. She goes and has the mammogram, is diagnosed with early stage cancer, has surgery, receives treatment, and is now on a road to recovery with a great prognosis. Another woman, same age, early 40s, I see her in the emergency department. She felt a lump in her breast 4 months prior. She didn't have access to the healthcare system, no health insurance, no benefits. She works an hourly wage job. So she sat home with that lump. And when she finally came into the ER, it was because of a wound on her chest wall. The cancer had become so aggressive that it had literally eaten through her sternum. And that's when she finally sought medical care. Several weeks later, that woman died. There's no difference in value of those two women. They both deserve to live. And the only difference was that one had access to the healthcare system because she had insurance and the other one didn't. In a country like ours, that is unacceptable. And that's why I'm running for Congress. We have to have quality, affordable healthcare for every American. And as a former ER physician, I know that struggle. I've seen that struggle up close. I've seen families come in time and time again without being able to have had access to the healthcare system because they didn't have insurance, they couldn't afford it. And they made difficult choices like, do we pay our electric bill this month? Or do we take our child to the doctor? Can we afford our insulin? Or can I afford groceries? These are not the kind of choices we want our fellow Americans to be making. We can do better. I have served and lived in the Valley for almost 24 years. In July, it'll be 24 years that my husband and I have been here. And I am proud to say I've served for over 10 years as an emergency room physician, caring for families all across, not just Maricopa County, but all over Arizona. And I then spent over 9 years working in cancer research advocacy, where I was working on teams to make sure that we vetted and then funded the most cutting edge therapies to improve cancer treatment. And I'm also on the board of Valleywise Health Systems, which is the healthcare system for our largest safety net hospital. And in that 24 years of serving our communities, I have seen time and time again the struggles of families all across our state. And what I know for sure is that we need change in Washington. When I became a physician, I took an oath to do no harm and to serve other people and put people first. And what I know is that David Schweikert has broken his oath as a congressman to Arizonans. And he really represents the worst of Washington. He is somebody who's forgotten why he was elected to Congress. He is somebody who long ago broke that oath, and we know that our district and our families deserve better. So I'm running for Congress because I'm a problem solver. I'm dedicated to making the lives of Arizona families better, and I know that we can defeat David Schweikert this cycle and bring real representation and a true public servant to Arizona's 6th congressional district. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you for that. We appreciate your answer on that. Going to the next question, the first question here, what actions should Congress take to aid small businesses and the working class harmed by the COVID crisis?
Yeah, what an extraordinary time we're living in, and that question could not be more important. We have seen, obviously, small businesses shuttered all over our communities, and we know the millions of folks that have applied for unemployment not just in our state, but in the entire country. So a couple things. First of all, we need to make sure that we add more into the PPP program. Which is the program that supports the small businesses. But what we have to make sure we do is actually get that money to small businesses. We know that there was poor oversight and poor allocation of funding in previous iterations of that. We have to make sure it goes to true small businesses so they can keep their doors open, pay their employees, and put food on their own tables. We're going to need more stimulus checks. We know that $1,200 doesn't cut it for families for 4 months. We need more stimulus checks to go directly to our American working families. We have to have rent and mortgage waivers in place so people aren't worried about losing their homes. And we have to protect food security by making sure there are no cuts on SNAP funding. We have to make sure we extend unemployment benefits. The last thing I'll say is we have to stop the continued efforts to erode the ACA, because at a time like this, the idea that we would take away healthcare from millions of Americans is unconscionable. So we must make sure that the ACA is there, that healthcare is there, that people have access to the healthcare system. And now more than ever, that is absolutely critical. So these are the things that I would make sure that we absolutely do. First and foremost, we have to address this crisis with the sense of urgency that it is really deserving of. So those are the things that I would focus on as quickly as possible.
All right, we appreciate that answer. Thank you. So second question, another important to everyone. What measures do you support to halt the progression and mitigate the consequences of climate change?
So it's interesting because we talk about all these crises that they're all overlapping, right? We've got the pandemic, we have the economic crisis, and the climate crisis continues to rage on, and it needs our attention as well. First and foremost, I think we need to change leadership in the sense of putting somebody in the EPA that actually values environmental protections. We know that our current administration, supported by David Schweikert, has voted to or has supported repealing so many of the important guidelines that were placed in past administrations to protect clean air, clean water, clean lands. We have to get back into the Paris Climate Accord. We cannot have a voice on this issue that impacts our entire globe if we don't have a seat at that table. Arizona should be leading the charge on renewable energy. We have to invest in our renewable energy economy. Arizona should be leading that in solar, in wind, in hydropower, and consider that this not only benefits our environment, but it is a huge source of job creation. The goal would be to get to a carbon neutral or full renewable energy economy by 2050. Arizona can be a big player in that. We can invest in a renewable energy economy. We can create thousands of jobs. Imagine the infrastructure projects that could come from that, as well as the economic revenue. We've seen what has happened to our Navajo Nation friends during this current pandemic, and so much of that relates to the disproportionate impact that the climate crisis has on those kinds of communities. One point specifically being the access to clean running water. We have to do better for all Americans. And the other point I would say is, look, making sure that we're investing in the technologies of the future. We have incredible universities in Arizona, University of Arizona, Arizona State. They're doing amazing innovative work on battery capacitance, on carbon capture, on planning to integrate the grid. We must invest in those innovative technologies. And I believe that if we are able to put this all as a priority, as a crisis, which it is, then we can make incredible progress over, and get to our goal of full renewable energy economy by 2050.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. We appreciate it. Next question. How can we make healthcare more affordable and accessible to everyone?
Well, obviously, I think I've made it very clear that healthcare is the reason that I chose to run, because we have to make sure that every American has access to quality, affordable healthcare. That is unfortunately a right. It's unfortunately seen as a privilege, but it is actually a right. And that is something I'm committed to making sure we see through. What we need to do is, first of all, stop this perpetual destruction of the ACA. This current administration has attempted to erode it day by day, and Mr. Schweikert has been right there voting to repeal the ACA, voting against protecting pre-existing condition coverage, voting against our ability to negotiate lower drug prices. What we need to do is strengthen and stabilize the ACA, keep the parts that we know work and are effective, things like protecting pre-existing condition coverage, making sure kids can stay on their parents' plans till they're 26, making sure there's no annual or lifetime caps on benefits, making sure there's no junk plans, because those only benefit the insurance companies and they don't actually protect our families. And after that, what I would do is, the next absolute best step is to introduce a robust public option. Allow people to purchase Medicare off the marketplace. Imagine if you let Medicare compete against private insurance companies. We would have not only enhanced competition, which allows us to have more choice, but we would drive down costs. And this has been proven time and time again by multiple studies that have been conducted on this type of plan. It would bring down costs. It would help folks who are small business owners, folks who want to retire early, people who are tethered to their employer-based health care. Imagine what that would open up for millions of families across our country. And this would get us to the goal of quality, affordable health care for every American. And the side corollary benefit of this is we would add millions more into Medicare, which would then improve solvency and also help us leverage our negotiating ability to bring down drug prices. So that is sort of a synopsis of the healthcare plan that I would institute.
Great. Thank you for that. Final question. What do you believe is the most important issue to CD-6, and what would be the first bill you would sponsor in DC to address that?
Well, look, healthcare to me is at the base of everything, right? If you don't have your health, you don't have the ability to work or go to school or anything else like that. And certainly right now, healthcare access is critical in the time of a pandemic. That being said, I think we're going to have to multitask and put out multiple fires. And you really can't improve healthcare or any other issue until you address the outsized role of money, specifically corporate money in politics. The corruption in Washington is at a fever pitch, and David Schweikert represents the worst of that. He is somebody who's in this ethics investigation. We know he's broken his oath to the families of the 6th District, and we have to make sure that we remove the influence of corporate money in our politics. I have taken a pledge. I don't take any corporate PAC money. I'm proud to be endorsed by End Citizens United, and we can't make progress on everything from healthcare to immigration reform to gun safety to climate crisis if we don't take out the influence of that dark money in our politics. Mr. Schweikert is somebody who continues to take dark money from corporations, places like the fossil fuel industry, big pharma, hospital corporations, the gun manufacturers, and so on. And that influences his agenda directly. So I believe, H.R. 1 was a huge bill that was passed first and foremost by this current Congress. Obviously, it's sitting on McConnell's desk right now, and we have to get it through. But that would influence every other area of policy. So I believe that has to be addressed first and foremost while we're putting out these other fires like our healthcare crisis.
Great. Thank you for that. Again, thank you for joining us today, Hiral. We appreciate your time. Do you have any final words for the voters of CD-6?
Well, thank you, Stephen, and all at MCDP for hosting this and for having me. I really appreciate that. And thank you to all of you that are watching and engaging and are being an active participant in our democracy. I'm so proud to be running for Congress in this district and in this fight against folks like David Schweikert. We deserve real representation. We deserve a true public servant. And what I can tell you is the oath I took on my first day as a physician is the oath I give to you. To put people first, to do no harm, to make sure I am working for the folks who've put me in office. Look, I am so proud of the campaign we've built. It is a fierce campaign that is ready to defeat David Schweikert. I can tell you that we have worked incredibly hard from day one. I'm thrilled with the grassroots energy and support we've built. We have amazing momentum. We have been able to raise the resources that it takes to get the message out to every voter. I'm proud to say we have outraised David Schweikert 2-to-1 for over 4 quarters in a row. We have a large cash on hand advantage, which is going to help us get that message out to every single voter. I'm proud to say that we have the endorsement and partnership of folks here on the ground, 12 of the largest labor organizations in Arizona, Arizona State House and Senate leadership, members of the Arizona Congressional Delegation, as well as nationally being endorsed by Emily's List, LCV, 314, Planned Parenthood, NARAL, Human Rights Campaign, Brady Organization, Everytown, and so many more that know that our campaign can defeat David Schweikert, and this is the cycle to do it. So based on our policy agenda, the platform that can bring on a broad coalition of voters, our ability to make an incredible difference in the lives of folks all across this district, we have the resources, we have the momentum, we have the grassroots energy, and we have the partnerships that will help us defeat David Schweikert in November. And I'd be honored to have your support. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today. And please remember to go out and vote on August 4th.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you to all our candidates and to you for being an informed voter. The Maricopa County Democratic Party hopes you learn more about these candidates and how important it is to bring new leadership to this congressional seat. Thank you for being a voter.